is the BMW M3 Touring, and it might just be the most exciting family car that you can buy in 2022. It's also the first ever wagon version of the BMW M3 and the first M-car wagon of any type since the E61 M5 of 2007. Now this car's going to go on sale in Q1 2023, but we've got our hands on a prototype nice and early. So in this video, I'm going to give you a look around the details of the car, have a look at the new boot, and then I'm going to explain why I think the Touring might actually be the ultimate M3. We'll start at the back, not only because this is where most of the changes have occurred, but because this is also the best angle to look at the M3 Touring. I mean, just look at this thing. Look at those swollen rear guards, this angry rear diffuser, and more importantly, look at the proportions and the stance. Now, a couple of key facts for the M3 Touring. Like the rest of the M3 range, it has a twin-turbo straight-six petrol up the front with 375 kilowatts or just over 500 horsepower. Unlike the rest of the M3 and M4 range, however, the Touring is all-wheel drive only. It's also only available in one trim, guys, top spec competition. Plus, you can only have it as an 8-speed automatic. So if you're one of the few people out there that still likes to shift cogs yourself, prepare to be disappointed. But if you want a performance car that can also do the daily grind stuff of kid drop-offs, dogs, even golf bags, the M3 Touring should run rings around any performance SUV. Now, the boot itself is identical to a regular BMW 3 Series wagon. With the seats up, the volume is 500 litres. With the seats down like they are now, that expands to 1,500 litres. For context, that's about 20 litres more than you get in a regular M3 sedan, and it's about on par with what you get from an Audi RS4. More impressive, however, is that BMW hasn't had to make any changes to the load bay to accommodate, a bigger exhaust or the wider rear track. You still get some useful storage here underneath this little shelf. And these little magnetic rails here with a rubberized section in the middle, that can help hold your luggage in when you're doing some enthusiastic driving. And just like a Toyota Prado, the glass section of the tailgate also opens separately. Now, as you might expect, given its different body style, weight has gone up a little bit for the M3 Touring, but perhaps not by quite as much as you're imagining. Officially, BMW says this car is about 85 kilograms heavier than an equivalent M3 sedan. So basically, that's like having one of your mates along for the ride in the passenger seat. Part of the weight increase is down to the roof. Unlike other M3 competition models, it isn't made from carbon fibre. Instead, it's made from steel, and it can be finished in gloss black or in body colour. An M3 Touring also gains this funky little spoiler here on the trailing edge of the roof. It's kind of like a gurney flap, and it's also 3D printed, which is a useful little feature that you can tell your mates about down at the pub. Where most of the extra weight has been added is here, down low in the chassis. BMW's engineers have added lots of extra strengthening to the rear of the M3 Touring to make sure it's just as fun to drive and just as capable as a regular M3 sedan. Spring rates and dampers have also been tweaked, and the spring rates are now a little bit firmer. Again, not to make the car more comfortable, but to ensure that it's just as capable and as engaging to drive as a regular M3. And you get the same polarizing front grille. Look, love it or hate it, personally, I'm starting to come around to it. There is no denying that the front of this car looks seriously angry and menacing, and that it has heaps of presence. Under the bonnet is a 3-litre twin-turbo straight-six with 375 kilowatts and 650 newton metres. That's a smidge over 500 horsepower in the old money, and that gives this car a nice sense of symmetry, actually. 500 horsepower up front, 500 litres of luggage capacity down back. Now, that engine is paired with an 8-speed automatic, and like I said earlier, the Touring is all-wheel drive only, and that's helped to shave its 0 to 100 time down to 3.6 seconds. Now, if you're the type to play top trumps with 0 to 100 times, that means this car is about half a second quicker to the ton than an Audi RS4. Helping to transfer all of that grunt to the road is sticky Michelin Pilot Sport 4S tyres, and they measure 19 inches up front, 20 inches out back. One final thing to mention at the front of the car is you might have noticed that the actual BMW Roundel is different. And that's because this is a special 50th anniversary of M design. And any M car in Australia ordered in 2022 gets this special white design. Inside, the M3 Touring is identical to a regular M3 competition, aside from one key change, and that is the infotainment screen. This car is the facelifted M3, and that means that the infotainment screen is one long continuous piece of curved glass that incorporates a digital driver's display and also the central infotainment screen. Some of the graphics are really cool as well. They've got the BMW colours in here, which is a really cool feature. Rest of the cabin, you get a head-up display, tri-zone climate control, and also a suite of active safety systems. And I'm pleased to report that the Touring's overt external aggression does carry over to the design of the cabin. This car has the optional carbon seats. They're lighter, and they have these cutout sections in the backrest. So if you have kids, prepare for lots of prodding in your kidneys. Speaking of your little grommets, I mean your little loved ones, they're going to be cared for back there as well. Plenty of room, even for adults. There are 2 ISOFIX anchor points in the outboard seats. And a final word on practicality, the rear bench does fold 40-20-40. BMW has been making the M3 for almost 40 years, but it hasn't given us a wagon version until now. It's weird because Audi and Mercedes have been churning out wagon versions of the C-Class and A4 since the 90s, but BMW's never really seen the need. It did tease us about 21 years ago with the E46 estate prototype, but that car never made production. So on the one hand, the timing of this car feels a little bit weird given wagon sales are now getting smaller and smaller. But then on the other hand, the timing feels almost ideal. 2022 has seen a number of really exciting performance wagons join the Aussie marketplace. And this car is just another reminder of how superior a wagon is compared to a performance SUV. They're not only more fun to drive, they also look a hell of a lot sharper, and they should also use less fuel. So is this car the ultimate M3? Well, we're going to have to drive it to answer that for sure, but personally, I know that this is the M3 that I'd buy on looks alone.